and more purposefully fight for our freedoms.
Sure.
And they liked that, you know. So James, they're actually they're separate attorneys. One works for a bigger firm, the other is independent, but they work together, and they're looking at you know, the actual firm would be, I don't know. I'm not sure how that would be structured yet. So that's kind of why I'm waiting on their proposal. And that's why I can't give you a super clear answer on that, because I want to see what they're proposing based on me expressing our mission.
Okay.
So, so the short answer is I don't know. The longer answer is, well, it's how I typically hire. Is I hire the people, not necessarily the, you know, just the position.
Right. Okay.
To me, oftentimes the positions can be malleable, where, you know, a person's character, I think you just can't substitute that.
Absolutely, I would agree.
And you know, James, you know, just to give you an idea, I think he had already had his already passed the bar and was an acting attorney. And when 9/11 came along, he joined the military and became a Black Hawk pilot. So those are the kind of people that I want. So just to give you an idea.
I want that guy in my foxhole.
Yeah, exactly. I feel those are, you know, the kinds of people that are ambitious. And then Mark, the other gentleman, he has worked on a lot of defending civil cases. So if there was a, you know, a plane, like a commercial airliner went down, he was representing, you know, people that were on the plane.
Okay.
So that's more of the defensive side. But, you know, you get a team, you can have offense and defense, and that's what was important to me.
Okay.
So, yeah. So any other questions while we're on the topic of legal? Great.
I'm gonna take that as a no.
Structure. We're I'm going to be learning as much as a lot of you guys as well. I've never put together a nonprofit. I've built a number of companies. I've consulted for companies, but it's all in the for-profit world. So putting together a nonprofit is new to me, and we're trying to figure out, you know, how to not put the cart before the horse. But it becomes again the cyclic circle conversation of, well, who puts together the board of directors? Well, the board of directors does.
Right. It's a self-appointing committee.
Right. So we're, and I think we need to have more exposure to have enough people to choose from, you know? So, but we can't, like, I don't want to turn on a lot of exposure right now because we're not structured.
Right.
So
we're very
see the
young
problem?
and in the infancy stage.
Right. So right now we're kind of a ragtag informal group. And once, you know, we get the legal structure in place, and we can start putting some of this other stuff in place.
Sure.
So what we want to do is we want to keep moving forward in any way we can that's not going to get us in a bind or paint us into a corner. And that's why I think research is important. You know, there are things that are happening that I wouldn't have been able to foresee. People are already starting conversations. Zoe, she's already putting together a podcast. So we keep doing that, and just, you know, keep the forward momentum going. And once we get some of this stuff more officiated, we're gonna have a good foundation.
The I guess the reason I have a fire under my butt right now over the whole Save Our Skies kind of coalition is the Senate is actually going over the new Reauthorization Act, and essentially that does away with 336. And by the time we get formed as an official nonprofit, it could very well already have passed the Senate, and it could be already gone, as an official law. So I really internally am struggling with wanting to do more, because time is of the utmost essence if we're going to get in contact with senators and to try to build a presence on them, trying to protect 336 and possibly drop the FAA's new rules. I mean, if the Reauthorization Act goes through, the FAA will have 120 days to create new rules for hobbyist UAVs. I mean, carte blanche. And if it goes through as it is now, we could lose a lot of what we currently fly with, which is without having remote ID and all the other good stuff. So I guess that's
it's
the
a valid concern. So as an exercise, let's just walk through it. Let's just say today we file. Let's just say tomorrow we are a nonprofit org. Okay, what could we do in that time frame and actually accomplish?
Campaign that directly contacts these senators and putting the pilots in contact with their senators to fight against sections that are being added with the Reauthorization Act that would give the FAA the power to create these new rules and regulations.
So we can do that already, right?
Well,
we don't need to be an organization, an official organization, to do that.
That's the argument that I hold, yes. There's others that say otherwise in the group.
Well, let's talk about that. That sounds like an important point.
It's my understanding that no, you don't need to be an actual organization in order to contact, your representative. However, I think that as a non-for-profit, you would be able to carry more weight in the conversation with your representation. So, I mean, we easily, all of us from around here, we easily could contact our own, legislators and get them on board with what we are working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, I think something like that takes more of a champion of a campaign. A campaign can be that's nothing more. I don't want to minimize it, but it's not easy to do a campaign. But
it's not the end of the world either. It's just a process of stuff that has to happen. Advertisements, quote unquote, made for the campaign, a message, branding, all that good stuff.
Yeah,
it's just
now all of that definitely becomes more costly, and even the strategy behind it. Who's building that? Do they have a proven track record?
Right.
That's where it gets more complicated. But if we want to do more of an organic movement, we can do that right now.
And that's kind of more of what I'm talking about, because honestly, we have 3 months. This bill is passing. It's going to happen, and if we don't start, at least getting this out there in the mind space of senators and other people that have the ability to make amendments, then it's going to be written in stone before we're written in stone. And at that point, we're going to be playing a very offensive game, because we're going to have to basically fight back for the rights that we had and lost. Which, tell you from being in other social movements, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
I have a comment too.
Go ahead.
My name's Dan Lundmark. I'm in LA. But yeah, I was gonna mention that are there other organizations that already have like, I know there's AMA, but also some of the racing groups, like, I don't know, DRL or some of the local ones that have nonprofits, or that we could gather together as part of a coalition, I guess.
Your own user group, maybe.
To what end? I guess what's the...
Well, I think they would be stakeholders too, as far as FPV pilots and a lot of the racers, like the different leagues and things. I'm not a racer; I fly freestyle, but I'm thinking that they would want to be a part of making their voice heard.
I've been
Excuse me
thinking
real
of those
quick.
type of groups as partners.
Hi, I just
Right.
want to
That's what
say,
I'm saying. Like, how do we all partner? Like, I know we're talking now as in this group, but are they hearing this message too, or doing something about it? Like, are there others that are creating campaigns, or do they have the legal?
It's a great question. And in fact, on our
Lumineer.
list of tasks that we could be doing now is actually documenting those or networking with those, and at least filing a Rolodex or a contact list group, so that when we do go to reach out to them, we have their numbers and contacts or emails, and we have a list of who they are, what they are. So that's the biggest question. We don't know. I mean, the community is so fragmented and has little pockets out there of people everywhere. There's no master list, and that's something that we could be doing researching and networking right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you my approach.
And one other thing. Well, hey, it's Nick from Nick Medincia. Hey, everyone. I'm really honored to be on this call with Chad and Squishy and Zoe and everyone. One other thing we could consider, I wanted to just sort of throw out there, would be like a petition on like a petition site potentially, with just a form letter send to people, like senators or congressmen, like something on change.org.
Yes.
Yes, everybody gets it, and throw up like some photos of drone education. Maybe Chad, if you have some really cool photos of people from Motor Riot teaching, quad camp or whatever, like with kids.
Well, what you're talking about is what he mentioned, the strategy, right? So if you guys are going to form a campaign, that's a piece of the strategy that you would then, design and then implement and go from there. But I would say you'd form a team, you create those strategies, kind of propose it to the coalition and be like, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing. Does it change anything in the permanent long-term plans, really? Does it lock us into anything? Probably not. So it'd be fine to just do it, but you have to find who's going to code the website, because you can't just do it in a vacuum. You have to come up with a strategy and a plan and kind of show it so we all know we're all on the same page, and then find the manpower to do it in the vacuum of resources, right? There's no resources at this point. So if you do, you have to be doing it for free,
Yeah, and I think that would be an interesting thing to do, sort of, quickly, so to speak, just to get some non-endemic people.
Actually, it reminds me of something that we used to do in the Army called the advanced party. Before any large divisions or whatever went off into the field, they always sent out one little platoon of people to the field to secure it, right? That's kind of what we can do here. We can set up an advanced party with motivated individuals who want to get this stuff done right now and let them loose.
I was going to insert a witty comment, but I don't have anything witty to say. But I'm down for getting some stuff done.
I think creating one of those generic, so if you created a generic letter to lawmakers, right? You'd have to get somebody to write it, do some wordsmithing, get Chad or whoever else to approve it, and then have somebody code a website that sends it to their corresponding representative. I don't know how easy that is. It doesn't sound easy.
So I have a friend, Whoop Tang, who's here in Monterey, and that's his day job. He does nothing but creates websites, social media campaigns to automatically contact their senator, auto dial them. So he's down to throw in that resource for the coalition and to offer it at cost, essentially what his provider pays for bandwidth hosting.
And see, that's where like the nonprofit status comes to be interesting, is because obviously whoever does that could write their time off,
Yeah, it definitely helps. The number. So in developing any effective campaign or building a business or whatever it is, I have a pretty strict methodology that I function within, and it's, you know, picking the goal and laser focusing all efforts on achieving that goal. So then that can be leveraged, you know, to the next. Be cautious of, you know, we could say, oh, okay, I know a guy that does a website or can do a website, a guy that can do a logo, and here's a really good writer. Favors to me are like, you know, it's like money. So if you waste those favors, you know, it's or waste the money, it's you're wasting resources. They're great if they have a clear mission that they're accomplishing, which means you got to have that campaign. Who's championing it? You know,
the mission, in my opinion, is the removal of 343's Section D, which is stating the remote identification remote piloted aircraft. And then Section 344, which is the which gives the FAA carte blanche to create new rules for hobbyist drone use, which is separate from the hobby drone or hobby aircraft use that is covered in Section 343. So essentially, it creates its own blanket rules for our drones, whereas planes and RC helicopters and the rest of the RC airplanes do not have to play by them. And that rule set especially is going to be created by the FAA, and we have no ability to comment on it.
Okay, so the very first step, in my opinion, would be to, propose what we want, get an agreement from the majority of the group of what we want to see happen. And Zoe, you've been closer to this and have had more conversations. What do we want to happen?
Well, and this is the biggest thing, is that, in my opinion, it's the removal, especially right now, because I believe they're already removing Section D of 343, which is the remote identification of hobby aircraft. But still they have Section 344, which is the basically replacement of Section 336. Once they get rid of 336, 334 or 334 comes into place, and that is what creates the new rules and regulations for hobby aircraft, especially just our drones. So essentially just removal of Section 344. That's it. Reauthorization Act as is, with Section 344 removed.
So is there anybody opposed or in the group that that has expressed they don't feel that's the best solution?
The only members expressing any rejection to anything like this are commercial bias. Our networks with the other lobbying groups are the only ones.
Okay, so good. So now we've identified what needs done. Okay, now a marketing campaign is one way to combat that. I think before we decide and start running down that path, we gotta say, okay, well, what are the other ways that can be accomplished? And this is where, you know, I want to help direct this energy. I don't expect to be in a position where I'm coming up with these answers. My job is to help facilitate this as the most effective way.
You're volunteering to herd the cats. How come?
Yes. Right. So I'm going to try very hard not to have a lot of personal opinions, but to run our mission, you know, forward and make sure that that is effective.
I think personally the quickest thing we can do is get an organized campaign together to contact representatives in whatever form that may be. I mean, that's the easiest and quickest way, but the problem is getting all these pilots from all these different groups and from the community as a whole to come together and accomplish that. And getting that message out and getting people to respond to it, I think, is the hard part, because a lot of people think that with whatever regulation comes out, they're just going to do what they do. And the problem is that's the mentality of a lot of FPV pilots, and we need to change that mentality because at a certain point, I think the FAA or they're going to empower the local law enforcement to really enforce those rules and regulations, and a lot of people are going to find themselves in a place of hurt. But we need to figure out a way to inspire these people to take some action.
So,
Well,
can I call that just real quick? Can I call it awareness campaign? Is that the best description of that solution?
Absolutely.
Education and awareness, definitely. That's definitely in the education arena where we'd be looking inward at the culture and trying to get everybody on board.
Okay. What's another solution?
Well, I sort of think an interesting solution with a blend of PR and possibly legal here could be lobbying for or giving people a mechanism to respond to the FAA preemption. Or in other words, states, municipal, and tribal governments making, drone laws that they're not permitted to make, such as that drone registration in North Carolina. And I think that could be an interesting, vehicle because it's more or less blatantly illegal right now for these organizations to do. So I think that could be an interesting vehicle. And obviously, being an FPV pilot, we've seen a lot of variance. I've seen a lot of variance in how drone law is imposed here, in Houston. So I think that could be an interesting problem to solve for the community.
Okay, no, and that's absolutely a valid solution, an expensive one most likely, but very valid.
Chad, is one of your biggest fears about any campaign is really hanging our shingle out before we had a chance to think about hanging our shingle out?
Well, yeah, my biggest fear about a campaign is that's what I've done for 20 years. And everyone thinks that it's easier than it is. Campaigns are very, very expensive. And I've worked with so many, my background is video marketing, but which meant I was the video arm to many, many agencies. And what I found are about 9 out of 10 agencies are, I'll just say, a scam. So that means they're better at getting your money from you than actually creating an effective campaign. So that means we have to find that one person out of 10, that is also willing, to work on something like this. And truly make it effective. And typically you find those people by their track record, but that's the problem. The ones that are truly effective aren't available. So campaigns scare me because they're really, really hard. So I hope I answered that.
And that leads to an interesting question in my mind, at least, which is, what is our sort of concrete goal? For FPVFC, is our concrete goal to, in the long run, really here, 1 to 3 years, is it to be, a heavy hitting lobbying group like AMA, or is it to be more of a grassroots, sign this petition and let's keep this going, and personally, I feel a little confused about what our goals are at this point. So what do you guys think?
Well, that's been discussed early on. Education is the hardcore concrete one because that's the thing that we can do no matter what. And I honestly believe it's the biggest impact. So it's everything from, creating educational materials for regulations and laws and rules. But also, I would like to see us be a community-based organization where we create a set of guidelines so there's not only one CVO to choose from, because this is to be laser focused on FPV. So the confusion comes from there, there's a lot of people already involved in our ragtag group, and they're all going to have something slightly different they want from it. But, I can tell you that from its inception, the the most active members, we've all agreed that education is going to be a very powerful, effective tool, or not just the tool, but the result. It'll help the hobby and the industry grow. So did I answer you, Nick?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think education is a key component. So thanks.
Yep. So education awareness campaign, lobbying. What's another way that this can be addressed? Zoe, any other thoughts from you?
I mean, when I hear about or think I only have my new reauthorization act. So we're going to be educating for a while, most likely. And my opinion, and the first bit of it, is just on what's going on with the Reauthorization Act and getting pilots to be more known about it. I know there's other organizations that have already started to speak out about Section 336 getting repealed, essentially. And I know I've read articles on Flight Test, on Get FPV, on a few other websites, and there are the idea of getting that information out there is there. When pilots hear about what's going on, they genuinely care about what's going on. The issue is that information really just hasn't been getting out there as much as it needs to be. I propose, if we are to actually go for it, basically create a basic script, explains exactly what's going on with Section 336, essentially getting replaced and implementing Section 344, just giving them a one-page outline of what's going on, and then essentially getting that out to every known video vlogger / FPV pilot that's known, and ask them, hey, this is what's going on. Here's what you can do to help. And what you can do to help is essentially make a video, make a post, anything that relates to talking about Section 336 and Section 344 of the new Reauthorization Act. But just getting the message out there, because, and then on top of that, give a call to action at the end of the message, which is click this link to contact your senators, click this link to get, information on who to call, and give these people a very basic script on what they can do to make a difference, because a lot of pilots want to make a difference and they want to be able to actually affect change, but they don't have a pathway that's easily visible to them to do that. So in my opinion, creating that pathway, which is not too difficult, and just promoting that as far and wide as we can, and with little resources, essentially, which is grassroots, going to the pilots, talking about these issues, even going overseas, going to Andy RCs and Bruce and all those, good cats, poking some of the DRL pilots, poking some of the DR1 pilots. I mean, it's a universal issue that affects a lot of us, and I know other countries will take heed of what the United States government's doing, as least policy goes. So, if we start banning or at least crimping down on these hobby drones, then other countries will probably take suit. So I think it behooves everyone to get on that page of protect our skies. And there's ways we can do it. Sorry for being long-winded, but I've been thinking
No,
about
Zoe, that was very well articulated. And I think, yeah, so far, essentially that's another version of the campaign, but you're talking about an organic awareness campaign, which I believe, honestly, that's the most doable right now. And we don't need to, we don't need to be official yet to accomplish this. However, I think I would identify you as the champion because you're the most, you speak the most passionately about this. I would gladly help direct your energy. And what I mean by that is I can help make each step the most effective it can be. And how you do that. Yeah, and how you do that is and I'm going to sound pessimistic towards humanity here for a minute, but I'm not. It's just
I'm already pessimistic towards humanity, so go for it.
People look at everything or just take it to an extreme and it'll be more effective. But just imagine that people are greedy and selfish and want to know what's in it for them, and they are lazy and they don't want to have to do much. So if you take it to that extreme, then you hit the lowest common denominator and you design something that's highly effective for all people. So what you want to do is you say, well, first off, you want to explain the problem as simply and concisely as possible, which you're doing a pretty good job verbally, but even more so, pretend you're explaining it to a 10-year-old. So one, keep refining that pitch of here's the problem. Then you want to be just as easily and quickly or concisely and quickly, you want to explain the solution. And then you want to explain, by you doing these steps or doing this thing, this is how it benefits you directly. And then give them a treat. It's like a dog, every time they do something, you get a treat. Well, obviously we can't afford to pay everybody a treat, but there can be a creative way of doing that. I don't know what it is, but maybe we go to retailers or manufacturers first and say, hey, if we get people on board to do this, can they get a discount in your store or something like that? And you just start kind of at the top and work the way down as far as manufacturers, influencers, retailers, and get buy-in at the narrow, kind of the heaviest hitters first, and then just start working your way down, but with the design for the lowest common denominator. Something like that could I don't want to say easily, anything easy is usually effective. But I do believe it could be very effective if it's done right and there's enough energy behind it. Because I can tell you, Zoe, I can hear it in your voice, and that just makes me want to give you 100% of what I can contribute to it. So I will back you on that if you're willing to say, hey, I'm going to see this campaign through.
Heck to yeah. No, I'm to see that through. I've something that's been on my mind. Can't help but think about it. So yeah.
No, that's good.
I'd really like, just like what you guys are doing now, just how Chad is helping you with the strategy and going through it. I would really like to just see transparency throughout the process, so that we bring the coalition along. They're aware of what just like you, we start at home, right, with our awareness. And then we keep the doors open to all the meetings and your thoughts and what we do going forward.
On that, I just gotta say personally, it's been really a struggle to follow everything going on. We mini conversations, notes will be made. And the notes are helpful because at least it gives me an idea of what's been said. But as far as organizing stuff and keeping track of things, it's a bit of a pain in the butt. I really think we need to move to something like Trello or another application that allows us to keep track. At least me personally, I'm willing to move to Trello and make every little thing that I'm doing open so people can see what I'm doing and what actions I want to take. And then you can even leave comments on those actions and be like, don't do that, Zoe. That's stupid. What are you thinking?
Well, I think what you're seeing is really the symptoms of our lack of structure, finalized structure, right? Because even if we go and put it all in Trello right now, it's just chaos, right? We haven't had it all laid out officially. So I think we're all dealing with the same thing.
More for let's say, for example, I'm thinking about if a project I'm doing, for instance, in Trello, I could one nodule that's just essentially who to contact, which is gathering a list of people to contact. can contribute to that, other people can contribute to that. The cool thing with that is you can see who's contributing what, and you can even vote stuff up with, you know, who you want or what you want to be worked on the most. And it just, like, I know personally I can manage projects that way. I've managed other projects using programs like that, so it just inherently makes sense.
I use the big ones at work. I use like SharePoint and Oracle. Like we check in and out code and stuff. It's crazy, some of these collaborative apps. But I think a lot of them cost money, like per user sometimes. I think Trello's like pro version, I think costs per user, doesn't it? So like we can't really jump into one of these things until we have a way to pay for it, can we?
The Trello one that I'm using is free for multiple.
Are other people hearing people cut in and out, or is it my connection?
I'm hearing it cut in and out as well.
Yeah, no, Zoe's going in and out a lot.
Okay, so Zoe, I don't know if you know. I don't know if it's your mic, like a squelch, or if it's the connection or what, but you cut in and out a lot, so it's kind of hard to hear what you're saying.
I think it might be the squelch.
And, you know... Oh.
So, real quick, Zoe, you were saying about Trello. Is there a cost-effective version?
Yeah, no, it's free. I mean, you can pay for pro users, and the pro users will allow other free version of it works just.
Hey Zoe, it's cutting out even worse now.
Damn you, microphone.
If you watch your icon, you can see it.
Yeah.
It's cutting in and out.
Okay, so now I'm gonna watch my icon while I talk and get used to this. Okay, now that I can think about this, the Trello is free to use. They have a pro version where you can add features, but as far as the free version, it works fine.
Have you seen that same page app that we were checking out this week? Because I tried out about 5 of them, including Trello, and then this other one, same page, which was like totally free. But it had all in their totally free one. They had like all the pro features plus more, right? It was pretty crazy, but it was a lot easier for me to use than Trello. I couldn't figure out how to use Trello. And for me, it was different.
I mean, there's definitely a bit of a learning curve to Trello, for sure. There's a learning curve to all those softwares, and realistically, it's kind of basically you want to have accountability for stuff that I might be doing or want to do, and we really need a workaround way to do that. And one of the only ways I really know of doing that is with some of these project management software that's available on the internet. So
take a look at same page for me, Zoe, if you can. Give it a serious consideration and let me know your feedback on it.
Yeah, I'll poke around with it today.
I had never heard of it. Stymie, I guess, found it and showed it to me, and it's actually pretty cool.
I actually have a couple of little projects to organize, so I could actually try giving that a shot with same page.
My thinking is, if we're going to invite the community of FPV pilots to join the conversation, we need to kind of make it easy for them, because like Chad says, they're lazy and greedy and all these other things. And so
please don't tell me.
No, I won't quote you. I believe that.
Trello originally, when I saw it, was used by game companies to allow their fans and players to interact with the developers to vote on features that they wanted added to the game. So companies, structured companies, have been using Trello for a while for community-based management integration. So it's definitely out there. I haven't tried same page. I'm going to give that a shot. But overall thing is
what I liked about it was easy. Like I logged into it and I knew what I was looking at. Like I saw how it was divided and where the tasks were and how to upload pictures, and like I knew how to do all that immediately. Super easy.
So ideally, let me say something real quick, Zoe. I agree. Like I've been here since the beginning, and I get lost in our notes. Like we've got Google Docs, we have pinned stuff, we have a Facebook group. Like it's just it's really hard, you know, to stay up on everything and find anything. And I more than the actual software, I think we need an individual that is willing to be kind of the admin and say, hey, I'm going to, so it's not
bookkeeper.
That Yeah, it's not that it's kept right the first time, but there's somebody we can go to and be like, "Hey, this is hard to find," and then they're like, "Okay, well, I'll readjust that and we'll do it this way or something." But somebody owns that responsibility then. I don't know if that person is on this in this voice chat or how we find that person. I can tell you it's not me.
Stymie was doing a good job on her first day.
Yeah, no, she'd be the one I'd recommend.
Okay,
she
then
sort of just naturally did it. Nobody asked her, so it was kind of nice to have somebody that wanted to.
Okay, well then maybe we can recruit her. Do you think she would be? I haven't officially met her yet. Do you think she will stay involved and it would be something she would be up for?
We'll ask her. We'll find out.
All right. Okay, yeah, so let's do that. So, because I can tell you that oftentimes in my own companies, we've chased different solutions and we've used practically all these, not same page, but we even have a Trello account. And what happens is we keep chasing these software solutions when it really comes down to a role. It comes down to somebody needs to own that responsibility. And typically that person I will let choose the tools they want to use because they're ultimately the one responsible for it. So if you guys are on board with that methodology, I think we find the person, and we can do that now. Again, we don't have to have an official, legal structure in order to make that happen. If we find software and there's a cost, I'm willing to cover certain costs, but not, $5 a head for hundreds of people. So let's, Sean, Zoe, can you guys help us find that person? If it is Stymie, it'd be great.
Yeah, I'll talk to her and see if we can't. It's basically we need somebody to come up with a strategy for how to look at it from a holistic point of view, where we're going to file everything, how we're going to file it, how we'll keep all the information.
Well, and I'm even more so than the strategy. I'm more interested in just somebody that's willing to own it, hell or high water. Somebody that says, I will own this responsibility of organizing information.
That's going to have to be somebody who's available quite often for everybody too.
Well, yeah, probably, but let's just say
able to organize the information in a way that's available for everybody.
Well, yeah. I mean, if somebody came in once a week and organized everything once a week, it might not be, optimal, but it would help a lot. So,
well, like what Josh is doing now, how he's done the three. I think we've done 3 updates, unofficial updates. We try to do them regularly at least. But he's kind of boiled down all the notes, so we threw everything at him, and he's been acting as a scribe, I guess you would say. But he hasn't really taken on any kind of document management at all. So that's
right. And I think that's what we're talking about is like document management is probably a good way of putting it.
I mean, in the absence of Stymie, whether she's willing to do it or not, I can either, back her up on any of that kind of stuff, or, if she's unable to do that, I'm pretty much always in the chat in one form or another. So I'm willing to jump in and help out with that in whatever regard as well.
Oh,
I think that's what I was trying to kind of say is, like, as the scribe, you're kind of close to it no matter what. You kind of got stuck there.
Okay. So, Zoe, did we complete our thought with you? Where are you at right now in your mind as far as what we've been talking about?
That I have some candy in my mouth and speak. I think that cover was out initially because essentially got to get Stymie or someone else on board to do information management. But as far as me moving forward, I'll just create a Google Doc page that is, editable. It allows people to essentially add to or remove what I'm doing, what I'm working on, and kind of organize everything I'm doing in one spot. That way there's oversight on what I'm doing, and you guys can also give me insight. And if I'm also going to change something or do something else, I'll run it by the group before I do that. But for now until we have an official structure. For me to be able to do stuff, I need to be able to organize and move forward, kind of.
I'll help you with that, Zoe. That's in the state and in like public workforce, we call them problem statements. So you kind of put together your, you outline the problem basically that you're identifying, and then you propose a solution. But you can put it in a form that everybody sees it and understands exactly what you're doing.
That is the plan.
All right. Hold on, I'm going back to my notes here. Okay, so I know we've bounced around a little bit, and I have to apologize. I have to go in about 6 minutes. Wow, time flies. But
is that a
no pun intended, but it's fun. Oh, you know what? Okay, I think I've kind of updated everybody on kind of where I'm at right now. And there is one thing that while I had a collection of people, I wanted to bring up, and this might go off the rails, because I don't know what everybody thinks about this.
Do not get sideburns, Chad. Do not go with sideburns, okay? Just don't do it.
So flying without a spotter, I personally would like to fight for a way that it's possible to fly without a spotter. And I'm curious on what everybody thinks of that.
I think there should be a way to fly without a spotter.
I brought it up, and I fought this battle with some of our full-scale pilot friends, and as much as they would love to fight, like make it a point of contention, they don't think it's a battle that we should fight. Just simply because of a lot of things that they outlined in aviation safety or whatever for me. But we can get Nathan Whittegren to speak to it. He's somebody who can make the point for us. He's somebody who really wishes we could fight for it, but he agrees that we have to keep it. So there is some people that could talk to it.
Now, I do want to explain my thought behind it. I believe the biggest hindrance to growing our hobby, the fear of regulations, the fear of, what might happen, and if they're going to get in trouble or if they're doing it wrong, because most people are willing to follow rules. So if you think about it, going out and flying by yourself, one, is a little less stressful because you don't have somebody there potentially laughing at you. But two, it's just logistically easier. So I do believe that one piece can be hindering our hobby probably at a higher percentage than anything, because most new people are thinking, oh, who am I going to get, to go out with me every time I want to fly? So that's my thought process behind it. Currently most people most likely are going out, probably their first time and flying alone. But then there's going to be a lot of people that aren't even going to be willing because they're afraid they're breaking a rule. I mean, so that's my reasoning behind it.
You could argue that in FPV we have better wish.
Oh, Zoe, we lost you again.
Let me just look into the microphone, press it a little bit. Okay, there we go. So the biggest, I guess, argument for being able to fly without a spotter is that we have potentially better situational awareness when we're flying in FPV than if we're looking at line of sight. Just from the mere fact that we see the machine from the machine's point of view, we see what's coming up on the machine from its point of view, and we don't have to worry about depth perception or anything else getting in the way of us being able to tell what's going on with the machine. Any line of sight pilot, I know there's some really great ones that can fly 3D helis up into the sky, hundreds and hundreds of feet away, breaking the 400 feet rule. But realistically, to have accurate kind of control of the aircraft, I honestly believe an FPV pilot has more control of the aircraft and has more awareness of what's going on than someone that's not. The only thing you do not have awareness of is your situational awareness of your body. I think it's a bit, especially in the parks around where I live, there's only one park where I'd feel comfortable actually flying without anybody. And pending that, I think it's kind of a safety thing to have someone there with you flying.
Yeah, and I think there's absolutely a lot of variables. I guess what I'm talking about is more the principle around it, because I'm not saying fly, that people should be able to fly alone anywhere, anytime, with anything. I'm saying that for a newcomer, I'm purely looking at growing the hobby. I'm saying if somebody new wants to get into this, what is the most inviting path for them?
Well, maybe there's like a middle ground. We could have the rules stating that if there's nobody within 200 feet of the pilot can fly within 100 feet of themselves without a spotter.
Well, I think like what you could do, honestly, for that, like what we could lobby for in terms of having a spotter is just try to have a weight limit on at what point you need a spotter if you're flying FPV, and possibly set that weight limit to where maybe if you're flying above a 5-inch quad, so 6-inch to X class, you need a spotter, which honestly makes a little bit more sense.
That essentially exists right now with the weight class of 250.
Yeah, but that I mean 250, it's the lower limit that I think what I would like to see us go for.
I like the 5-pound line myself. I never see it identified, but 5 pounds I think is.
This is where I differ. I think the 100-gram quadcopter should be the limit as a toy, because at 250 grams, I can get a 250-gram quad up to 90 miles an hour and screw your day up real good. But a 100-gram quadcopter, no matter what happens, that thing is most likely not going to cause anything to go wrong. I mean, I've flown my 100-gram setups into myself and other people, and they laugh it off.
So it sounds like there's really I'm thinking of 3 different aspects to this conversation. Really, the first one is the one that Chad brought up, right? It's a real holistic view. He's looking at it like this is a hindrance to industrial growth, right? And for beginners and things like that. But it doesn't necessarily take into consideration the safety conversation you guys are having, nor does it take into consideration what the FAA is actually thinking, right? So the FAA is thinking on this subject a certain way, and they may be thinking that there's no way that you're never going to do FPV without a spotter because you situational awareness for unexpected things, right? So we really got to think about what leeway do we actually have with them. I mean, if there's no leeway here at all, then there's no way to trace Chad's point to actually fight it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and real quick, just to explain where I'm coming from, again, this is the offense. It's saying we want to accomplish something, and this needs to be handled. Because if we come at something from the safety perspective, as far as safety for safety's sake, we're just going to paint everybody into a corner. But if we say, hey, think about cars. When cars were first invented, they thought everybody was going to die, and,
yeah.
Well,
It's one of the biggest things that kills people every year. I mean, cars are killing.
I picture like a line of sight beginner pilot, right? Which imagine like a flight test line of sight park flyer with foam board and hot glue and popsicle sticks. He's going to go out to the local park or the ball field just like a FPV pilot would, but they don't know how to fly. They're going to be flopping around. I was there once, right? I crashed into every tree in the park, and I was never flying FPV, so I'm still just as dangerous, right? So there's lots of things to talk about. You need to gather all the safety statistics and everything and differentiate FPV pilots from all these other possible risks and kind of show where they lie, realistically in the grand scheme of things, but you have to kind of prove it and show it.
There's nothing really to prove it or show it right now. We don't have those hardline statistics.
Yeah, but that's what we could be researching and gathering on right now. And we're doing it from a new perspective, right? The AMA has gathered these statistics in the past. They've done all this work, but they're doing it from an aero modeling perspective, not specifically FPV. And there's other user groups as well, right? The ultralight guys and the rocket guys. They all probably have statistics on their operational safety, right, over the years, same as AMA. But no one's ever began that process for FPV. So that's sort of our job to begin that.
Okay, so
Yes.
I mean, part of it is going along the research lines. Is we need some scientific data to back some stuff up. So we need some scientific calculations on how much force something 500 grams or 5 pounds creates at going a certain speed.
They've already done a lot of that. The
Okay.
military
Use
did studies.
put some proposals together. So we need to say, okay, so we don't want to fly with a spotter. These are the reasons why, and then these are the ways that we can go about it. Whether it's rural only areas where there's no expectation of people invading, or if it's a weight class, or if it's a speed class, or a combination of all three. And then we need to poke holes in it. So I think the biggest thing is coming up with a proposal on what we want, and then gathering the facts to support it or change it.
And I mean, one thing that I think might be worth saying here is that, I mean, from as early on as we are here, is it may be wiser just to concentrate all of our efforts on the biggest thing here, obviously, which is 336, and worry about some of these smaller fruit later on. But I know a lot better than I do what grows the sport and what doesn't.
Well,
yeah.
So I could be wrong, but as a CBO, we get to define our own rules, and it's within our own group to decide whether or not we want to have spotters. It's not an uphill battle about redefining anything with the FAA. So
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah, you are correct, and that's the idea of creating a CBO. But it obviously still has to be within the FAA guidelines and rules. But here's the interesting thing: we can go to the FAA and try to get waivers for certain things, and if we get that waiver and we function legally because we have the waiver, we can collect the data during that time, then use that data to take it even further. So it's, these are things that we can do, and it's going to take time. This is where I think, again, it's nothing more than a little bit of creative, structuring and education, and we can do a lot with that. It's what I get excited about once we can kind of get the structure in place and keep moving forward.
Yeah, well, I'd like to point out that like our immediate needs, like 336 and all of these other things that we'd love to react to right now and tackle like the right way, right? Like if we're a fully functioning, mature organization, but like we don't have that yet. So what we really should maybe refocus and put a lot of our efforts into the creation of the organization. I know that we want to go and attack all these external problems right now, but it's sort of how we're going to do it is by looking inward and strengthening the organization first so that we can tackle those things effectively. So
Sean, that's very well put. And I do agree to some extent, but I also, if Zoe's like really, hot on this and feels like she can make a difference, what I'm saying is my time right now, I'm telling you, is going towards legal and getting this foundation in place. Now, if in my ancillary time or whatever resources I have access to, I can support somebody like Zoe, moving forward on something, I will. So we can move those in parallel, but my personal time is going to go to the foundation of this. Does that make sense?
No, got it. And I think Zoe is on track. I think she understands what how to check and balance herself against the rest of the membership here.
I mean, I'm doing it not for myself. I'm doing it so we can all keep flying. Like,
no, absolutely. That's the thing. There's multiple things that we can all do to contribute to that.
We're all good at different things, and everybody like may find themselves up to bat at different points in time, and if you're ready to go and what if you see that you can be effective now, then we need to do it.
Right. So I'm past my deadline here. I already missed my call, so I got to get going, guys. But thank you so much, and I look forward to this. So and I like this kind of informal conversation right now because I think there's still a lot of feeling out of getting to know one another and starting to. It's stuff we can do right now while we are informal. So. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Chad.
Thanks so much, Chad.
All right, we'll talk next week. We'll try to get another time locked down here.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
See you, Chad. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
So, I want Zoe, before you go, feel free to schedule your own meetings if you want to gather some minds together and do your own stuff in here. People are free to schedule meetings and drop in this thing in whenever they want to. So we don't just always have to wait for Chad.
I am 100% down. I've got plans that I want to include everyone on, and just essentially stuff that we can do now to hopefully get the ball rolling so that we have a chance at saving 336. Because
Hell yeah.
the more I research it and the more I look into it, the more we are on time when it comes to actually having any chance of affecting it before it passes the Senate.
Oh yeah. In reality, we should have got started on this about a year and a half ago.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like we're months late to affecting change on 336 right now. We're like way behind the ball.
And and you know what? And we should acknowledge it, and that's okay. And if it happens and we fail utterly on that particular battle, then we suck it up and we drive on to the next one. But we still move forward with what we're doing.
Right, and the part of that, those people that will get educated by 336 and the rights that they have now and potentially might lose, those people will then be even more so wanting to protect their rights in the future when the organization's more solidified, and we might have to fight that uphill battle to get more rights back in the hands of us as pilots. So
it'll be our crucifixion.
kind of. I have to nail myself up to a post to save this fucking hobby, so be it.
I'll set mine up right next to you, Zoe.
Hey, instead of using a
I
post,
got
you
you.
can just use like an X rig.
Hell yeah.
Oh my god, yes. A 1200 millimeter beast.
And we can use giant carbon fiber splinters.
Oh jeez.
Yes.
I have the image in my head, and I want to.
It's
I
a
kinda
wonderful
wanna see
image.
Photo. I kind of want to see someone do a rendition of
Who's
me
good at
on the
Photoshop?
cross with an X-Class rig, but anyways.
I got some Photoshop skills. I got you, Zoe.
I'm thinking you should do that.
I got you. I'll find a video. I think I know that there's a video of you kind of like holding your arms up, and I can get a photo of an X-Class rig, and then you maybe watch like the Passion of the Christ and get a screenshot of that. I got
And then
you.
you could, I'm not saying you should do this, but what you could do is you could Photoshop like an FAA logo on the Roman's head.
Oh my god, yes.
All right, let's not piss off all the believers this week.
So on that note, though, like I honestly think education-wise, we have to be able to make everything memeable. If we can't make it memeable, we're not going to be able to make it memorable for people to actually get behind and support.
If you want it memorable, you make it memeable.
I mean,
That's true.
it's stupid, but it's the new
No,
generation.
it's not. That's the thing. Is it's not. Kids these days, like, they just, they remember things that are memes.
Mm-hmm.